today and talk to all the nonprofits. As you just saw, or as you just heard, I just started the recorder because we do want to make this presentation available to other nonprofits who maybe couldn't be with us today and other leaders who couldn't be with us today. And just a short little plug before I hand it over to Lana. United Way of Acadiana has puts together these nonprofit meetups as a way to share best practices and resources with nonprofits. And so we're very, very excited to do this. We do this right now every other month. And we hope, with the help of our advisory committee, which Alex Lazard is a member of, we hope to kind of increase our resources and support to nonprofits over the coming years. And in addition, just one more thing for your calendars before we hand it off to Lana. We will have in the next couple of months, those of you that are partner agencies, PAC partners, will be working on releasing our RFP towards the end of the year, and we will keep you informed through this process. So with that, I want to thank Lana. And when Lana concludes, we also have a short message from Alex Lazard about a really cool opportunity happening. So Lana will speak for probably about 45 minutes or so, and we'll be asking and answering questions as she goes forward on the importance of board engagement. And so without more introduction, Lana, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Carly, thank you so much. And United Way of Acadiana for inviting me today, and for everyone who is joining today's nonprofit meetup. I truly feel like I'm amongst peers. Like Carly said, I am a lifelong resident of Acadiana and a very proud UL grad for both my bachelor's and my master's. Since about 2014, I have managed an 18 to 20 member board. So just to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, from then until now, from 2014 until now, we have been able to increase our total assets 1,500%. We have grown our endowment from about $250,000 to more than $4 million. And we've grown our scholarships program more than tenfold. And so I will admit to you, and that's why I'm so pumped about presenting this today. In my early days, I really tried to do it alone, not bother my board, but it only led me very early on to a lot of burnout, which I'm sure you guys experience all the time, and probably a little bit of alienation from my board. So our board had some pretty big goals, those BHAG goals, right, to hit in the year 2020, not only internally, but there was a really big goal that was handed down from our state system. And I very quickly realized, as much as I didn't want to bother my board, I really needed to leverage them a lot better. I'm sure many of you can relate, but I was always the student in undergrad or grad school who did all of the work in group assignments. And I succeeded under that model in school. But then in the workplace with a robust board of directors, that wasn't going to cut it. So you may be like me, where I was several years ago with a board that was like semi-engaged. Almost, if I would think of my board engagement as an emoji, it would be like the meh, that meh emoji. But some days I couldn't help but wonder, like, are my board members just there for the coffee, which was really good, by the way. So several years ago, I really set out on a quest to demystify board engagement. Every conference I went to, the colleagues that I had were really bemoaning their board, sharing war stories. And I really just thought to myself, man, like, we've got to figure this out. So I set out to work, and it has been a lot of work, I will say, a lot of testing to see what works best for my organization. But I think I have really found some best practices, and I'd like to share them with you today. So I got to warn you, it's nothing earth-shattering, but it's truly just tried and true processes. All right, so I want to begin today's presentation with a story. So throughout the next about 40 minutes, you'll probably see quite a few references to Stephen Covey. I'm a huge student of his teaching, and I've really tried to infuse a lot of the knowledge into my career over the last 15 years. So if you're a Stephen Covey fan like me, you'll probably recognize this screen with the big rocks in it. And Covey uses this metaphor for prioritization. So one day, an expert was speaking to a group of students, and he used this illustration to really drive home a point. The speaker pulled out a 1-gallon mason jar, set it out on the table in front of him, and he placed about a dozen fist-sized rocks into the jar. He asked his students, "Is this jar full?" Everyone in the class said yes. So then he reached out under the table, pulled out a bucket of gravel, and then dumped it in. The gravel started to work itself into the spaces between the rocks. So he asked again, is this jar full? Everyone again said yes. So then he reached out under the table once again and took out a bucket of sand. He dumped in the sand, it worked its way through, and asked the question again, is this jar full? So by this time, as you can tell, the students were really starting to catch on, and they said, no, the jar's probably not full. So for the last time, the speaker grabbed a pitcher of water and started to pour it in until the jar was completely filled. And I use this story because it's really a great illustration and metaphor for prioritizing the big rocks. If we don't put them in first, then we'll never get them in, right? So board engagement was something that I was trying to fit in after everything else I did as a leader of my nonprofit. It was the water I was just trying to pour in at the last minute. The turning point for me was flipping it completely on its head and making board engagement a big rock that was put in first. So once I did that, everything else came back beautifully and plentifully. My organization's goals and my effectiveness as a nonprofit leader. So here's what we're going to achieve today during the nonprofit meetup. And again, just thank you so much for everyone joining. I'm going to share 4 tips for board engagement with you. And underneath these tips, I have a few subpoints infused with a few Coveyisms here and there, just warning you. But most importantly, I'm going to provide tangible examples. If you're like me, I don't mind talking philosophy and vision and big ideas all day long. But after a while, I'm like, okay, how do we execute this? What are the tactics and the actions here? So I'll definitely provide you with that. I'll wrap up my 4 points, and then we should have time maybe for a couple of questions before the hour is over. And the last thing I want to do is mention that, guys, this is my story. Each of us have a completely unique nonprofit with a unique mission, unique challenges, and unique opportunities. So, and oh, don't forget, a very unique board. So all of these tangible examples may not work for you, but I promise a lot of these tips are timeless. So take these ideas and concepts and truly mold them for what works for your nonprofit. All right, so here we go. The first tip is onboard your members properly. So after a few years of working at our nonprofit, I continue to hear board members make statements such as, Lana, it took me a couple years to really understand what was going on. And I thought to myself, like, 2 years, like, why? I knew that our nonprofit supported a very complex multi-campus college that covers 8 parishes, but 2 years, are you kidding me? And so that started to keep me up at night. At that time, our board member terms were 3 years. So basically, in essence, my board was saying that 67% of their time was spent in some level of confusion and uncertainty about A, what was going on, and B, what they were supposed to be doing as a board. So think about your nonprofit. Would your board maybe say the same thing? That it took them a couple years to understand what was going on? Or maybe they're not saying it, but do you feel that from your board? Go back to the beginning and really, really think about your nonprofit. What does your onboarding of your board members look like? How are you onboarding fresh new members off the street, right? And what isn't maybe connecting in the beginning? So in execution terms, how do you properly onboard? So the first point under onboarding is begin with the end in mind. And that is a Coveyism. It means to begin a task or a project with a clear vision of your desired destination, and then continue to be proactive about making that happen. So for me, I had to go back before we even had board members ready to start their service. And I want you to do the same. Let's go back just a little bit further. What are you looking for in a board member? Maybe type it out in the chat. What are the top qualities? Maybe someone who's passionate about your mission. Maybe someone who has the time to dedicate to your cause. Flexibility in their schedule to attend some of the meetings. Maybe the right connections, right, in Acadiana to assist in fund development efforts. Or do they also maybe have to be a past recipient of your services? But the question that we need to ask ourselves is, are those qualities clear? Thank you guys so much for typing some of your qualities. For our nonprofit in the beginning, those qualities were not clear at all. In fact, I'll be honest, we really did recruitment the way a lot of nonprofits do. Our board members just seem to nominate their friends because they liked them. They were good people. They probably heard how good the coffee was. But what it does is create really an ill fit within your organization. So what I want to do is challenge you to think about it and even list it out. And even better, maybe engage your board or one of your committees on your board in the process. Keep it to about 5 to 10 qualities, a good one pager. And are there even non-negotiable qualities for your board service? So I want to share our nonprofit's essential criteria, as we call it, and we broke ours down into 8 different qualities. So some that you'll see are passion for the mission, philanthropic history, reputation, diversity, connection to resources, and so on. This is shared with every single board member before we even begin our nominations process each year. It serves truly as a checklist as our board members are thinking about our organization's new leaders. So they may have someone in mind, but if that candidate, for example, is not passionate about our cause and they cannot dedicate the time and the effort, it will probably be an ill fit from the very get-go. If the person they have in mind maybe is not willing to advocate for our college and our foundation, again, maybe they would be better served on a different board. And it may even be an issue of timing. I've seen that lots of times where someone may not have the time and effort to dedicate right now because of a life event, but they may be a great fit in another year or two. So your patience will definitely pay off. So once you really provide the fence of your criteria, then there's freedom within the fence. I like to use that phrase. So let these qualities that you come up with really weed out those individuals who may just be truly outstanding people in the community, but they're really ill fits for your organization. And it really is okay to be picky. The second point under onboarding your board members is to set the tone. So some people say it's not how you start, but how you finish. But I don't believe that. It is how you start. It's important to start your board members off strong. First impressions are truly lasting. And if you get your new board members energized and really engaged from that starting point that you see on the screen and keep up that energy, they'll know what's expected from day one and also be bought into your organization. But if you fail to start out strong, it'll result in board members who fail to understand your mission. They don't know what their responsibilities are, what the staff does, and what the ultimate goals are for your nonprofit. So what I like to do before new board members even start is go on an interest meeting with an individual. You're interested, I'm interested. Let's kind of see where this goes, right? So I meet individually with each interested party and we talk about their interest in serving on our board. I usually, to be honest, realize within the first hour if they're going to be a good fit or not for our nonprofit. I mean, I lay it all out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And after this first meetup, I try to give that person a few days to really consider and wrap back around to me if they want to move forward or pass up the nomination. And then the second point here is to invest your time in hosting an official orientation. I have served on boards in Acadiana where you kind of just like slide in to the next upcoming board meeting, and it really seems like trial by fire, right? So help to set the tone for your new members and make them feel comfortable with giving them an official orientation. Maybe let the CEO or the board president talk to them, welcome them, walk them through what a typical board meeting agenda looks like, walk them through some of the financials. Every nonprofit's financials are different. Tell them where the board is even leaving off in terms of accomplishments, current projects, initiatives. You know, we can't ask board members to run a marathon with us without even training them properly first. All right, so tangible examples. Here's an example of a board orientation that I recently conducted in early August with my new members. And over the course of about a couple hours, our members were able to hear from Dr. June, our college president. They received a warm welcome from some of our board officers. And then we dove into where we were as a nonprofit, where we currently are now, and then of course, where we're going. And so that first meeting, that one-on-one meeting, our little coffee date or our lunch date, right, coupled with an effective orientation after they were officially nominated will really help set the tone for your board. And I promise, keep them engaged from day one. And the last point on onboarding is to give your board members the right tools in their toolbox. So you cannot tighten a screw without a proper wrench. And so they need you to provide them with that right wrench to do their jobs. I think we've all been in jobs where we've been asked to do something, but maybe not provided with the adequate tools to actually get it done. And so we don't want our valued volunteers to feel this way. So think about it. What do my board members need to effectively do their jobs? So think about the training component first. Are there trainings from your organization that your board members can participate in? Are there maybe professional development opportunities that would be beneficial for them to attend? The next thing is provide them with access to software, internet portals, passwords, etc. And one tool, you'll see the logo at the bottom, that we use is a board management software called Board Effect. I kind of geek out over it. We've not only been able to go paperless in our organization through this tool, but it also provides a platform where literally everything a board member needs is stored in this one-stop shop. So board members can find policies, financials, meeting packets, information on their terms, how many meetings they've attended, contact info for other board members, which committees they served on. They can RSVP to our meetings, and a lot more. So for our new board members, they can log into this platform and literally find any document from the last 4 to 5 years. So I always recommend that our new board members get into this type of system and they're able to read minutes from the last 4 to 5 board meetings to see what was discussed and again, where we're going and what needs to be done. The third thing is templates. If you do ask your board members to send out solicitation letters, emails, thank you letters on behalf of your organization, provide them with what they need, the letterhead, the branded note cards, suggested language. They can always make it their own, but guide them in what to say and how to say it. I always get that from my board members. Just tell me what to say and how to say it, and I'll make it my own. And then lastly, any other information they need to do their job. So if a board member is passionate about maybe the spay rate in St. Landry Parish for an animal nonprofit, provide it to them. Offer them to take them on a tour to your site so that they can adequately advocate for it. The second tip is make expectations clear. So I don't know if any of you have had freshman board members who start with a ton of enthusiasm, but once that initial excitement starts fading, they begin to really start to lack follow through or initiative. And so before you get frustrated, and I've been there many, many times, I have to think my board members cannot live up to their expectations if they don't even know what I want or need from them. So do you have clear expectations for your nonprofit's board members? I initially didn't, I'll be 100% honest. I just wanted them to be great board members. I mean, but what does that mean? What does that look like? I knew what I would do to be a really great board member of an organization, but sometimes individuals need clarity. And they're volunteers, right? They have many, many other priorities, busy careers, families. They probably even serve on other boards in Acadiana. So let's talk about making those expectations clear. The first point is put it in writing. When you begin your job, you probably had a job description that kind of defined the freedom within the fence, the parameters of what you needed to do. And it truly is the same with board members. Put it in writing, highlight the things, the actions, the goals that you want them to meet for your organization. What are their key responsibilities? I know for us, it's governance, advocacy, and fundraising. Maybe is it for you all of the above? Some, be specific. What are their core responsibilities? As part of their agreeing to be on your board, what are they really agreeing to? Because unless it's an advisory board, being on a governing board comes with a lot of responsibilities, and they as board members are completely entitled to know what that looks like. So at the SLCC Foundation, we have a board member agreement whereby each board member delineates what they're committing to us in terms of actions, behaviors, and then in turn, we, the nonprofit, outline how we will be responsible to each board member, from providing financial reports and updates to opportunities for professional development, and then responding to any requests for information so that they can carry out their fiscal, their legal obligations, etc. And these are then signed by both the board member as well as myself. All right, I love this slide. This is my favorite point because it really changed the game for me, and I want to talk about the F word. So I first want to ask, how many of your board members are bubbling over with excitement about fundraising? Let me see, I'm trying to look at some of the faces. I just see some giggles, so that's good. Because if so, you've probably hypnotized them. So I run a foundation board, which of course is a governing board whose mission is to support our college through the raising of funds. So even more targeted than some other nonprofits in Acadiana. And out of my 18 to 19 board members, guess how many love to fundraise? One. Really, he lives to ask people for money, but that's 1 out of about 18. So that's like 5% of my board, right? Which was kind of a head scratcher for me because I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Like, I thought you were on the wrong board. Like, did you not know what this was about? But they're not on the wrong board. They have a passion for the mission. But myself as a nonprofit leader, I've got to help them think differently about fundraising. So something that really changed the game for me and my board was when I was going through my CFRE certification process. This is the Certified Fundraising Executive Credential, which is a rigorous international credential. So I've seen this chart many, many times, but it wasn't until going through the CFRE process that it really started to sink in for me. It's called the cycle of philanthropy, the fundraising process, the donor life cycle. Many different names are given to this chart. But when I really sat down and started to study it, truly, it was like a light bulb went off for me. I realized that my board members, you see that little gray spot that says 5% solicit? They were terrified of that small 5% of the process. They hated it for many, many reasons. Scared of the no, scared of rejection, scared of ruining a relationship with a colleague in Acadiana. But that's the gray area that as the executive director, I can live in that 5% all day long, along with my one other board member. But I didn't need them in the 5%. There was still 95% of that process that our board members could play a very critical part in. And so I want to go through it with you. So first is identify. This is thinking of different companies, foundations, individuals in Acadiana and beyond that may meet 3 distinct characteristics. That's called LAI. Best practice, right? So L is linkage to your organization. The A is ability or the capacity to give. And then the third is the I, do they have interest in your organization? The second is cultivate. So this is inviting potential donors to the table and engaging with them, inviting them to events, inviting them to your facility. The third is solicit, but you got to do it at the right time for the right amount, by the right person, to the right person, and for the right project. And then fourth, assuming that the solicitation went successfully, it's thanking and recognizing the donor. And then last, stewarding and engaging. I'll tell you the last 50% of the pie, stewarding and engaging and thanking and recognizing is probably the most important, but unfortunately the least practiced in the field of philanthropy. There's been a lot of different studies that I've read by companies and donors on how little stewardship is executed by nonprofits. We spend so much of our effort and time and attention to that first 50%, but we have to remember it's a continuous loop. So then I want to tell you, here's what changed the game for me with my board. So I literally brought this, y'all, literally just the little pie, not the stuff on the side, but I literally brought this to one of my board meetings and I showed them this slide. I walked them through each element, just like I walked you through each element. And then it's like a light bulb started going off with them too. I think I literally heard an audible sigh of relief, but that's okay. I mean, they were like, oh, wait, I can do that. I can do this. Okay, that's no big deal. And then I literally passed around copies of this chart and I asked them, write your names in the area or areas where you want to contribute to the philanthropic cycle. Some board members love to write thank you letters or emails to our donors. Others maybe love to open up a door for us. Take a prospective donor to lunch with us, have them meet myself and Dr. June. Others can identify potential donors in the community like nobody's business. But now every single board member in our nonprofit is participating in a cycle that benefits the organization and is true to their comfort level and as well as their unique talents. So I asked my board members to participate and engage in at least 5 interactions on the fundraising cycle each year. It's part of their annual scorecard, which I'll show you in a bit. And boy, do they keep track of it, I can guarantee you. But it's contributed to a lot of our success in the last few years. And the third point under the clear expectations is thinking win-win, which is another Covey reference, right? We all need our board members as part of our 501c3 nonprofit status, right? We have to have them. And we need them to help us move our organization forward. But I've really thought a lot about how can I help my board as individuals and professionals? What's their win? What's their win in my nonprofit? I mean, they want to give back to their community and make a difference, but how can I help to create a win-win for my board where at the end of their term, y'all, I'm going to pause for this, they literally say thank you to us. I mean, wow. I've literally had that happen several times, and it is unbelievably humbling and powerful that they received more in return than they felt that they gave to our foundation. And so think about it. Each of your board members comes into your nonprofit for very different reasons. You could probably literally line up each of your board members, and each one would probably give you a slightly different answer on why they joined and what they hope to accomplish. So in turn for the value, please think about the value that a board member will provide to your organization. How can you provide value back to them? So it's through customizing their board experience. And I want to explain that to you just a little bit further. When I realized how different our board members' goals were and really thought about it a lot, I found this template online and I began using it. And so think about having your board members, it's called our engagement plan, develop 3 distinct goals each year based upon their interest in your organization and what they hope to get out of their board service. So through this engagement plan, we truly set up expectations as a collective group. You'll see some collective work and non-negotiables in the middle of that document, basically the baseline of what we're asking from our group. And then we ask them, what do you hope to accomplish during these 12 months as a board member? What will you do and what would you like to achieve so that your board service is rich, it fulfills you? For some board members, for us, maybe it's establishing a scholarship or a special fund in our organization based upon their interest. That's fulfilling for them. For others, maybe they would like to volunteer 2 or 3 hours a month at your nonprofit. Try something different. Perhaps they'd like to know a little bit more about your mission by attending 3 events each year, let's say, outside of their required board meetings. Maybe it's serving on a committee that they know nothing about because that is going to enhance their professional portfolio. Get your board members to do this each year of their service. Ours is actually due right now. I sent out an email this morning telling all of our board members, get your engagement plans in. And I guarantee you their time on your board will be one of the most rewarding experiences for them, but it'll also be rewarding for you. All right, communicate regularly. Is everyone seeing the right screen? Communicate regularly? Okay, great. It looks like my computer's kind of acting a little wonky. So the third tip is to communicate regularly. Communication, guys, as we know, is the key to success as a nonprofit leader. And of course, we all know this, but communication is pretty much defined as the process of understanding and sharing meaning. So I want you to think about, how are you communicating with your board? I want to talk about a few tips that have proven very helpful in my journey to board engagement that will hopefully help you. So first, it's communicate the why. I'm sure a lot of us on this call have seen the Simon Sinek video of starting with why and the golden circle, that magic golden circle. The premise is people do not buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? It's the same with our board members. I think it's safe to say they are on your board to make a difference for your organization. And so bring the difference to them, show them, and then do it regularly. Show them pictures of the dogs and the cats taken off the streets of Acadiana and adopted by loving families. Maybe bring an animal to a board meeting if that's allowed. I don't know. Tell them about the foster child who has maybe been in the system for a dozen years and they were finally adopted by a loving family because of your organization's work. Take them to a playground your organization just built and let them see at-risk children playing in a very safe environment. Let the single mom who, this has happened many times, who has courageously walked away, right, from her years-long abuser because of your organization, talk to your board. What I do is I call these mission moments, and I intentionally incorporate them into every single board meeting. I bring a scholarship recipient who has benefited, from the scholarship dollars raised by our board, and I give them the floor for like 5 minutes. They tell their story, they give their testimonial, And I promise you, there's not normally one dry eye in the room. So what I think are seemingly small memories or small moments for our board members is not so much. When I ask our board members who are preparing to start transitioning off of their board, they're done with their board service, I'll often ask them, what was your favorite part about serving on our board? And their answer is always hearing the testimonials of the people we helped because of our work. Remember, it's not what you do, but why you do it. The next tip is communicate directly. So it's so important to engage with our board members as a group within meetings, but the one-on-one interactions, y'all, will keep them engaged. So I wanted to share a couple of things that we do in the SLCC Foundation to try to personalize communication with our board members. And some of these are, we host annual meetups. I try to make it a priority to meet one-on-one with every single board member once a year, completely outside of meetings, outside of events. I take them to coffee. I ask them about, how's your board service going? What are we doing well? What can we as a nonprofit and especially staff do to improve upon? What are you most passionate about within our nonprofit? And then I just listen. I just sip on my coffee. It gives me a lot of valuable information on how to keep my board engaged, and I start listening for trends. I've been able to learn a lot about why some board members have appeared disengaged. Maybe I found out their husband was suffering from cancer, and it allowed me to support our board member during this life event. And then for others, I learned something new about their passion. So time incredibly well spent. The second, I tried to carve out time to bring our board members to coffee and to lunches outside of our annual meetup. If I have a random spot in my schedule, I've tried to, hey, are you free? Let's go to a coffee shop. Let's go to Rev. Let's go to CC's. I have built and strengthened so many incredible relationships within our board members by just breaking bread with them and investing time, even if it's spontaneous, and asking them that morning by getting to know who they are and what makes them tick. And then on a fun side, we ask for our board members' birthdays, anniversaries, and we have cards sent out signed by our team. It's super quick, it's inexpensive, and it just makes an impression. It shows you care about the board member truly as an individual. And then lastly, in line with the mission moments that I talked about earlier, we connect our board members to their beneficiaries. So for an example, in our nonprofit, we have some board members who have scholarships, and then we're able to work one-on-one with them to have them meet their recipients and learn more about them outside of an event or a scholarship reception. So think about how you can engage with your board one-on-one. The last point under communicating directly is to communicate between meetings. So a lot of boards don't meet but quarterly, maybe every other month, and so on. And so that's really only a few times a year to really sit down and hear about the great work of your organization. So what happens between the meetings? To keep board engagement up, I recommend communicating between those official meetings. There are so many things happening daily. I know at your organizations, I keep tabs. Lives are being changed, your mission's being carried out. Share some of that to keep them reminded of your organization, the why behind their service, and keep them informed and educated about what's going on. So our board meeting, we have them 5 times a year. So I've developed a brief monthly newsletter called Board Matters. I like to include reminders, news, exciting announcements. I sometimes do some board shout outs. I do key topics. I like to link to articles about fundraising, serving on a board, nonprofits. And we also like to include them in a distribution list for our press releases as well to keep them up to date. So I just have a little bit of a part of the e-newsletter that we send out. This was from September 2021. So consider doing the same to keep your nonprofit as well as its incredible mission front and center with your board members. The final tip of board engagement is to measure and reevaluate. I always like to say, and I hear a lot of times, what gets measured gets done. Just like the importance of onboarding your board members correctly, it's truly a continuous cycle of engagement, reiterating expectations, measuring progress. It's important that our nonprofit provides the services, right, to our clients, our constituents, but increased scrutiny, y'all, just from a local level as well as a national level in the nonprofit sector is calling us to measure everything. So in the realm of board engagement, I want to focus on 3 different areas. The first is measuring each board member. The second is measuring the board as a whole. And then the third is measuring us, the executive director. So the first point is measure board performance. If you're like many nonprofit professionals, and I am sometimes one of them, you may just kind of get frustrated by the performance or even the lack thereof from your board members. But ask yourself a couple of questions, and I have to do this continuously. Does my nonprofit have expectations for its board members? Are those expectations written down like we talked about earlier? Does each board member know and understand what's expected of them? And then do they agree upon those expectations? Have clear expectations from your board members. What are you asking them to achieve each year? To where if they do these 3 to 5 things, and at the end of each year of their service, you and they will both consider them successful or effective. Each of you probably have board members, and I do too, that kind of naturally just go above and beyond. Like they just get it. They get your mission. They naturally understand what needs to be done within their role. But others may not have this level of familiarity with your nonprofit, even with board service. They don't know how to be a good board member, right, in general, or with the expectations you may have of them. And so think of those 3 to 5 things you'd like every single board member to do. Again, you will consider them a well-performing board member if they do these 3 to 5 things. Write it down and share it with your board. So this is our scorecard that sets our expectations for our board members. And so if you can see on the screen, the first 5 columns are related to matters that are either expected or we'd like to celebrate maybe. And then the last 2 columns are related to board attendance, because our board really started to make that a priority several years ago when attendance was becoming an issue a little bit before COVID. So I'll tell you, in all honesty, this scorecard is reviewed at every single full board meeting, and each board member can transparently see how they're doing. It's a very, very transparent process, but we leave no room for the, well, I didn't know you wanted me to do that. We look at the scorecard and we even give reminders like, hey, it's May. Don't forget to get your annual board member contribution in before the end of the fiscal year. So we always like to celebrate 100% board giving. And it serves as a way to celebrate our progress, or it also motivates some board members who might be lagging or just forgot that they did not do something for you. So for example, when I look at this scorecard, I start to see a pattern with board member number 8. They're missing meetings. They're not meeting some of their expectations like some of their other board members. So there's a great, great opportunity to check in with this board member, or even have your president do it, your board chair, to see what's going on and what kind of support you can give them to re-engage.
Lana, quick question about that. Do you put the names on in every board packet, or do you leave it? Because like if I'm board member number 8 and I look at that, I know I'm board member number 8. Like their names, I remove the names, for anonymity, but yes, their names are all written down. It's a 100% transparent process. Okay. You even see some people writing down like, oh my God, I got to get Lana a check, or I got to go do this for my board service. Or then if we forgot something, they'll very much raise their hand and correct us like, no, I don't have 3 stars on my board interactions, my fundraising interactions. I should have 4 or 5. So I need you guys to check into that. So no, 100% transparent. Thanks for the question. Yeah.
So another good piece of measurement is to have the board rate themselves as a whole. So through participating in this, and I hope a lot of you guys do this, it's going to reveal how far away, or even not far away, your board believes it is from its expectations that it has set for itself, right? So the purpose of this self-assessment is to be sure your board is fulfilling its duties and responsibilities, and that you have, as a nonprofit, the processes in place to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and oversight of their organization. This assessment has helped to identify issues for us that needs clarification, ideas for improvement, gaps maybe in skills our board members believe they need on our board to be successful, and even topics for future education. So an impactful board assessment will leave your board directors asking themselves, how can we improve and what more can we be doing? So I've listed the 5 areas, as you can see in the bullet points. Oh my gosh, that's 6. No, okay, it's 5 because I have a bonus one that our board members assess themselves on. So we've been doing this self-assessment for about 5 years now, and it provides truly invaluable feedback in my quest for my continuous, never-ending quest for becoming a best practice nonprofit. So while this assessment is about the board as a whole, over the last, I think it was 2 to 3 years, I've added a bonus question about their personal engagement. Because again, we're talking about engagement here, and I'm on this continuous quest, asking each board member to rate themselves on their personal engagement on the board from a 1 to a 5. And then I asked them, tell me why you rated yourself that number. So adding this question has allowed me to keep, I guess, an additional pulse on board engagement and see why or why not board members feel engaged. So some answers may surprise you. Their increasing work schedule doesn't allow them to attend all the meetings, or maybe they've become even more engaged from previous years after meeting some beneficiaries of your program, or some of the practices that you've put into place that I discussed earlier, or working with your organization. And then lastly, as we talked earlier about the boards conducting the self-assessment in the previous slide, every nonprofit board should be conducting an annual review of the nonprofit CEO or executive director. So this annual review, and you'll see just the beginning slide on the screen, for us, it's both for every nonprofit. It is a board's primary governance responsibility, but it also provides an opportunity to identify the strengths of the nonprofit's leader, as well as areas for growth, right? Or if the board is insufficiently informed about what you do. So my board scores me in 4 different areas, as you can see on the screen. And this information is also shared with my college chancellor, yay, whereby areas of growth are also worked into my annual goals at the college, because I have those dual roles, right? I have a college role and a nonprofit role. So I've been incredibly, incredibly humbled by the feedback that I've received from my board over the years with this tool, but I've also grown immensely from the feedback that has allowed me to set my targets for improvement. All right, and then my final point under measuring and reevaluating is sharpen the saw, another Coveyism. So that habit is, I have to admit, is truly one of my favorites from Covey, because it means preserving and enhancing the greatest asset that we all have, and that's ourselves. We must never become too busy sawing to take time to then sharpen the saw, right? So I have to say, and I think we all know, working in a nonprofit, y'all, it is a marathon and not a sprint. It is a long-term game. So many of us are dealing with important issues that have plagued our area, our society for decades, if not centuries. We cannot do everything in 1 month or even 1 year. Remember, Rome was not built in a day, and neither will any of our organizations achieve everything in that time frame. So we have to think about self-care. We all talk about it, right? We've seen it become a big thing through COVID, but remember to fit in time for renewal, to eating right and exercising, connecting with your family and friends, reading, spending time in nature, attending a religious service, etc. And then be kind to yourself in such an uncertain time. Y'all, there's so much negative news, conflicts around the world. Being kind to yourself is paramount. Being kind to others is important. But being kind to yourself as a nonprofit leader is not only key to your survival and your mental health, but to your organization as well. So as I wrap up this presentation, I quickly want to recap the 4 main points. Remember, onboarding your board members is key. Start them off right. It is how you start. Make expectations clear. Remember, it's okay to talk about the F word with the board. Talk about the F word all day long. Set expectations around it. It is going to be transformative. Do communicate regularly and often. Less is not more. Less is not more in terms of communicating with your board. And lastly, measure performance and take time to sharpen the saw. It is a long race. Please take care of yourself. So this may seem like a lot, but I've been able to integrate a lot of these tactics into my nonprofit over a series of years. So start small, y'all. You don't have to do it all, right? Find 1 or 2 things from today that you can begin with. Try to find a way to adjust it within your nonprofit, and you will see a difference that it makes in your board's engagement. And so as I wrap up today, I want you to remember that board engagement is a priority that will lead to greater outcomes. It is that big rock that must be put into the jar first. So I'll leave you with a great quote from Mr. Stephen Covey, the guy I've been referencing throughout the presentation. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And with that, Carly, I will hand it over to you And I don't know if there's any questions. I haven't been able to see the chat too much.
Yeah, I think we've all been like transfixed. I don't think we've had a lot of questions. Lana, that was amazing. And I think like, I think I want to get you to reiterate one point because I need to hear it again. This all sounds like a lot of work, right? But
Yes.
I kind of want you to validate this comment that when you get rid of, or when you implement what you just shared with us, your actual productivity and your workload gets lighter.
Yeah.
And it seems impossible, right?
Yeah. Well, but Carly, to your point, you're no longer putting out as many fires on the back end. You're just being proactive on the front end, right? And so I spend so much less time and frustration and having to do the work myself and probably not even getting as great of results. I'm getting mediocre results trying to do it myself, than truly utilizing the board for what they were created for. And that is to help your organization and help to move it forward. So you're absolutely right. It's just switching that mindset from from reactive to proactive.
Right. And it can be hard to do, but when you get into the groove, it can really create an organization that's operating on all cylinders.
Yeah.
So just we are going to make this recording available, but also, Lana, if you're willing to share your slides, Paula asked if the slides could also be shared. So we will circulate that. We had a few folks who couldn't make it today, so I know they'll be super excited to watch the presentation. And Lana also put her contact information in the chat. So
yes, and so the only other thing I'll say, Carly, because I know we have some announcements, is if there's any thing that I shared as tangible examples that you would like to see, I believe in copying and sharing everything, right? And so I would be more than happy to send the original Word documents to you guys to use to push your organizations forward. So just contact me, happy to share.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to introduce Alex Lazard, who is a member of our nonprofit advisory committee at United Way of Acadiana, as well as Alex wears many other hats, pastor at Destiny of Faith, and works for LCG as well. And he's going to share with us an opportunity that LCG is making available for nonprofits. So Alex, with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Lana, that was an excellent presentation. That's my second time sitting through it. And I still have a whole page of notes. So I do have one question. So I'm gonna use 30 seconds to ask a question. But you had presented a screenshot of the self-assessment of the board member. Is that form something that you're able to share, or maybe point me in the right direction of where I could get ideas of what I could populate a self-assessment with?
Oh, yes. I can send both the self-assessment and the ED assessment in Word, because it's a Google form that we use, obviously, so they can do it online, but then I then translate the results into a Word document, so I can just get rid of my scores, which are still good, by the way. Just kidding. But to give you guys the actual questions and assessment. So just email me. Happy to share everything.
Okay, great. I will email you. Thank you for that. All right. Well, we're almost at the end of it. Thank you so much, Carly. Thank you so much, Blair, United Way team, for allowing this nonprofit meetup to take place. This is such a unique resource to the nonprofit community of our region, and I'm just really glad that we're able to have this. So if you all can see really quickly, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I just want to let you know about something that's really interesting. It may not exactly meet maybe what your organization does, but I do think the more people that know about what we're trying to do will enhance the success of this program. So without further ado, I want to talk to you a little bit about a project that's happening within the Evangeline Corridor Initiative. The Evangeline Corridor Initiative is some work that I've had the privilege of being on. Carly actually was a huge mentor in allowing me to be a part of that work. But in 2014, a federal Tiger planning grant was implemented that would work with neighborhoods along the I-49 corridor and mitigating the negative impacts of the interstate. And so we spent oodles and oodles of time meeting with residents and neighbors and business owners, and we came up with the ECI initiative, the Evangeline Corridor Initiative. And as you can kind of see on the screen, we separated the corridor into 5 districts, and you can roughly kind of see the boundary starting at the intersection of I-10 and I-49, going all the way down a little bit past the airport. And on one side, you can see kind of there's a Patterson, Pierce, takes in the couple neighborhoods, then loops back to Jefferson. And on the other side, it's Moss Street, and then it swings around a series. So this is our corridor. This is the area that we did planning work on, and it produced really awesome plans for 5 districts. And those plans have different ideas and concepts in them that produce some design manuals. So these design manuals live with each corridor, each neighborhood, and it produced catalyst projects. And that's one of the ones I want to talk to you about really briefly today. One of the catalyst projects is called a community initiated project grant. The goal is for us to come alongside organizations that's working in neighborhoods or supporting neighborhoods to produce any type of project that will contribute to placemaking, community pride, cultural history, or recreation. Grants through this program range from $1,000 to $5,000, and the application period is open, and I'll be accepting applications. We'll be accepting applications through the 1st of December, with recipients announced shortly thereafter. Really quickly, the grant details. The applicant, whoever's applying, must be an organization with a neighborhood focus. That could be a coterie, a community group, or any other association. As long as you have a focus in some way on neighborhoods in the city of Lafayette, you're able to apply. And the projects must be performed in the corridor, so that boundary that I went over must provide a public benefit. We are asking that they're completed within 6 months following the notification of award. And once again, it contributes to one of those 4 factors: placemaking, community pride, cultural history, or recreation. And then also we want them to make our neighborhood safer, more inviting, or provide needed services. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some examples briefly. The grant recipients will be assigned a fiscal sponsor, either Habitat for Humanity or SMILE. And this last part I'm really excited about, but we are requiring grant recipients to attend capacity building program offered by United Way. So that could be attending a nonprofit meetup or any other way to do that as well. And the goal is to continue to foster a really good nonprofit community here in our area. And so I just wanted to show you the boundary one more time, so it's top of mind. And of course, you can reach out to me if you want to have a copy of that. And some examples of what projects can be. They could be art box installations. This little picture right here that has El Citos, that's actually a traffic cabinet that was covered in really unique art. It's actually found on the Thruway. It could be a Better Block initiative, which is a planning experience that takes a certain area and transforms it for a certain period of time to show what we could do or transform a certain intersection to. It could be enhancing a gateway. It could be helping a neighborhood develop their identity. It could be with neighborhood safety. It could be green and open space areas, a pocket park, a plaza. These are just some pictures of things that's happening around the country with people who are doing really cool things in neighborhoods. So just wanted to show you, like, Alex, all that sounds fancy, but what is a neighborhood project? So these are just some examples, and we're excited about the partners that we have. So like I said, Habitat and SMILE will be fiscal agents, and United Way has come on board to be a capacity building agent, so that we can help whoever gets these grants be able to implement it and carry it forward. And so the application can be found at that really long website that I will post in the chat. And if you have any questions, that's my desk number, 291-5617. And I did it within my time frame. I'm so excited. If there are questions, you could ask now, but I'm going to post my little contact information in the chat, and you can reach out to me at any point, and I can talk more in detail when it's convenient for you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alex, and thanks to you for your leadership and kind of weaving all these threads together, right? I think that we're excited to see community organizations get prioritized for this funding, and then acknowledgement that, we're grateful at United Way that there's an acknowledgement that events like this are providing value to the nonprofit sector, and we can continue to build trust and credibility in the sector by doing things like this, and then being validated by that. So, and of course, we couldn't do it without people like Lana, who gave of their time for an awesome presentation. So I know we're all going to leave here today and go engage a board member and thank them for their service. Do one of those. You don't have to do the 5% today. Do one of the 95. Just thank somebody, or tell them you appreciate them showing up. So appreciate all you guys showing up. We'll send a note after to kind of just share with you the couple of the resources and the recording if you have a colleague or someone who missed today that you think would be beneficial. And I'll just thank Blair and Emma for always being awesome coordinators of this. And also just, encourage you all that I know sometimes a presentation like this can seem daunting, but Lana is living proof that when you live it, you'll see great outcomes for your organization. So thank you all and have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yes, thank you.
Bye, guys.